February 9th, 1991, my brother was at a party. One of his friends walked into the room, grabbed a .223 rifle, walked up behind my brother while he wasn't paying attention, and put the gun to my brother's head and pulled the trigger. It didn't take me long when I was a kid to know two things. That I found out there was a God at an early age, and I found out that I loved to deer hunt, loved hunting in general. Even got my mom to go out, get me a BB gun, and that's where it all started. Well, I saw this bird land up on the power line, and I took a close aim, pulled the trigger, and down he went. My grandpa had always told me, you're not supposed to shoot anything that you're not going to eat. And I felt bad about it, man. I went over there, I started crying, went in, told Mom, and she told me that if I shot anything else, she was gonna whoop my butt, and I was gonna lose my BB gun. Well, a few days after that, I was back to my same old tricks. I saw this bird land up in the tree, decided I was gonna take a pop shot at it. I said, well, I'll just shoot at its head, you know. There's no way I'll hit it anyway. Put that BB gun right on his head, and I pulled the trigger, and down he went. Man, it was a feeling come over me like nothing else, and I knew I was in trouble. I walked over there, and I'd heard about God, and I'd been to church several times, and I decided that I better do some praying. I better get this thing back up on its feet and gone, or I was going to be in some big trouble. Well, I went to praying, and I asked God, please, Lord, please, whatever you do, please let this bird get up and fly out of here. My mama's gonna beat me. Well, I looked down at its head, and I seen a hole, man. I seen blood coming out, and I knew there wasn't no way it was gonna happen. And I just looked up, and with all my might, I prayed to God, and I looked down, and that bird rolled over and took off out of there, and I hadn't seen him since. Well, wasn't long after that, I started talking to my brother. I told him what happened. He said, yeah, I know, Mama's already told me. He said, but there's one thing you need to know. He said, you need to know about Jesus. Well, my brother was my hero, man. If he said it, I was listening. And he told me all about Jesus, told me that if I was going to make it to heaven, that I was going to have a personal relationship with him. He told me how he died on the cross, and he told me everything I needed to know to be saved. It wasn't long after that, I was saved, went to the church, got baptized, and that right there is when my life really changed. Right before we moved to Texas, my brother came in one day, and he was just different. I couldn't tell what was wrong with him, but he was just different. And I asked him, I said, hey man, come in here and play a game with me. And he grabbed me, picked me up, and he says, one of these days, I'm not going to be here to take care of you. It's going to be you and God. February the 8th, 1991 was a day I'll never forget. My brother was chosen to be in the Love Lady Love Fest. It's like a homecoming court, and he was chosen to be the king of the seniors. Well, after the festivities, my brother and a bunch of his buddies ended up going to a party. When the phone started to ring, I knew I didn't need to answer it. And I was hoping it would stop and hoping it was just a wrong number, and wasn't long and the phone started to ring again. Well, I knew something was telling me don't answer that phone, so I got up and I went to my mom's room. And I'll never forget walking in that room and my mom's, the look on her face, and my stepdad, Freddie, was getting out of the bed, and it was panic. And I knew immediately that something had happened to my brother. One of the hardest things I ever had to deal with was finding out that night a guy that was supposed to be my brother's friend was drinking, doing things like that, things he wasn't supposed to be doing. And he walked into his room and he grabbed a .223 rifle and he walked up behind my brother, and for no apparent reason he put the gun to my brother's head and he pulled the trigger. Well, they always say that God won't give you anything you can't handle, and I say that's not necessarily true. He won't give you anything that He can't handle. In times like that, when my brother died, I had to go straight to Him. He was the only way I was going to make it through. My brother always told me, he said, you have a gift when it comes to hunting. And I'd always be sitting around reading magazines, watching hunting shows, and he'd always tell me, one of these days, you're going to be the guy that we're watching on TV. So I ended up going to Missouri hunting, ended up running across a team member with Drury Outdoors. He told me that we would get together, have a trial season, and see if we could put some deer on the ground. Well, after that first season, we had 10 days to hunt. We ended up killing 3 really good deer on video, and that was kind of the catalyst to get me into the hunting industry. God's blessed me in many ways, not just in the hunting industry, but He's blessed me with an awesome family. I wouldn't trade any of them for anything in the world. One of the coolest things I get to do is take them hunting every fall, and that's some of the most enjoyable times. A dream without a plan is only a wish, and that's all I really had. But God provided, and God put me where He wanted me to be. And I feel like because I always believed in Him and I never turned on Him no matter how bad things got, that is why He gave me the circumstances that I have now. And God provided for me, getting me to where I'm at. And I want to use my story to help save lives, to lead people to Christ. I know for a fact, with all the things that's happened in my life, I can look back and I can see the pattern and I can see the path. And I can't get up here and tell you that I was one of those guys that was a drug addict and somehow turned my life around, because when I believed in Christ, when I accepted Christ, it took. I'm not going to tell you I'm not a sinner and I don't do things wrong and fall short of the glory of God, because I do. But I'll tell you this, I've tried my best to do my best for God. And when He gave me the platform that He's given me, I feel like now that I need to let people know what Christ has done for me. Looking back at my life, I didn't really want to talk about my brother and how he died. I didn't want to bring it up. It took me over 20 years to really start talking about it. But I had a couple of buddies that were non-believers, and I told them my whole story about my brother leading me to Christ and telling me that one of these days I'd be in the outdoor industry. And I told them the whole story, my life story. And both of those guys ended up accepting Christ and being saved because of what I told them. And I realized that it was a pretty powerful story of what God had done for me. And so that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to start telling my story to more people. That way God can use the platform that He's given me for His glory. Because truly, that's what it's all about.